All right, we're live. Just going to give a moment for folks to roll in. We have our first visitor, Joshua Ondo.
Howdy.
You're driving, shocker.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, I'm in Omaha, so it's only 4 o'clock here. So I've got a whole another hour to go before my day.
I will say, though, it is 5 o'clock somewhere.
It is 5 o'clock somewhere. And since you are driving, I know you don't literally mean that because that would be bad.
That would be bad.
That would be bad. Bad. So, yeah, we're just waiting for the 5 o'clock bell to ring. So it's getting pretty close. So, just going to tick-tock, wait. So hopefully you got some cool stuff that you want to chat about today.
Yeah, a handful of things.
Nice. I'm out here in Nebraska at the NBA's annual convention and did a session on AI. And it was kind of a new one for me. I'm pretty excited about it. It tried a couple of new things, and they actually worked, with the exception of one little technical item that we'll talk about. But, you never get to do like the perfect presentation. It's always one or two things go sideways, but overall, I was very pleased.
Yeah, something's got an act up or it's not a real presentation.
Of course, including my opening joke. So, anyway. All right. Dana.
Well, hello.
Hey there. You're on the big screen. Welcome.
Well, hi.
I hope you were prepared for this.
No, not really, but I thought I'd give it a try.
Well, there you go. See, this is welcome to the happy hour. We got Josh is in transit, so he is on, and so there's either the option to join live, which is what you've done, so you can be part of the conversation, or people can just join and lurk in the shadows and listen on LinkedIn to what we're saying. So, but because you were a brave soul and clicked the link, this means that if there's something that you want to talk about, we get to throw that on the agenda and we can make it all about you for a little bit. So no pressure or anything.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I think I'm good. I can't think of anything I specifically want to talk about. So
there you go. Well, maybe something we talk about will nudge a thought or an idea. So we'll give it another couple minutes to see. Let me go ahead and check the chat here. So yes, I am glad I made it to Omaha as well, Neil. Thank you very much. So just want to make sure you are going to come up on stage with me. Are you able? Normally, Neil is a good frequent flyer for us, and he comes up on stage quite a bit. But we will see if he can make it. Sometimes he can, and sometimes he can't. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll kick things off. I'll provide a little bit of background for those that might be new to the LinkedBanker Happy Hour and provide a little backstory and just set the lay of the land. So the LinkedBanker is the monthly mastermind mentoring program that we launched back in 2020 as part of WSI to help bankers basically build their brand and connect with their audience, their customers, their community, their prospects, and be that subject matter expert. And so we do private monthly mentor and mastermind sessions. We call it M&Ms for monthly masterminds. And unless our good friends there's Neil, excellent. Unless our good friends at Zoom decide to shut the network down on us like they did last month when Fred Cadena and I were at the Financial Brand Forum in Vegas. We were going to do the M&M live from the Veracast studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. We were all prepared. It was going to be so cool. Zoom had a global outage a half an hour before we were supposed to go live. So normally those are the third Wednesdays of every month at 3:30, and these LinkedBanker Happy Hours go the second Thursday of every month at 5 Eastern. And so these are designed just to bring people together to talk about banking stuff, to network, to meet new people, to just chit chat and have a conversation, plus also experiment a little bit about live streaming, and maybe there's a way that you could use it for your business, your bank. We got a lot of community bankers that join these, and this is a great way to connect to your audience, meet new people, and just talk about things that your constituents and your ideal customer personas, your target audience might be interested in learning about, and just sharing ideas and thoughts and bringing people together. So that's really the goal. So you can see we've got Josh and Dana and Neil, and here's my other Omaha buddy, Fred, rolling in. Mr. Cadena, how are you, sir?
Phenomenal. How are you?
Phenomenal. So, but you don't have to come on stage if you want to just stay in the LinkedIn shadows and listen in. You certainly can do that. But if you want to toss us a message, give us a chat on LinkedIn. We're picking that up. And if I have all my ducks in a row, this should be going live over on my personal Facebook account, as well as our LinkedBanker YouTube channel. So multi-stream. I feel so cool when I say that. So
You're
but
internet famous,
these don't
man.
have
You're
any
internet famous.
I'm famous in my own mind. That's about it. And in my mother's. So she thinks I'm a genius, and I don't want anybody to tell her otherwise. So we'll just leave that as our little secret. But these don't have any agenda. There's no PowerPoint slides. There's no preconceived, ooh, this is what I'm going to talk about. I've got some ideas. And Fred, I kind of gave a little teaser to Josh. I can talk about how well that Verizon joke went over when I kicked off the session.
You told it twice and still didn't get any laughs.
I did. Well, I think they laughed the second time, and I think it was more of a pity laugh. But the chair of the NBA introduced me, and I said, hey, thanks. And as every good speaker, you're tapping the microphone. Hey, can you hear me now? Which, I don't know, is that such an old television commercial that nobody remembers the Verizon guy? And
I was
totally
in the room. You were generationally appropriate.
Okay, good. Yes. And what he means by that was there were a lot of bankers there.
Many
Yes,
people,
absolutely.
many people with gray like us.
Yeah, exactly. So I tapped it and I said, can you hear me now? And I just kind of said, hey, every time you say that, you owe Verizon a quarter. And it was like crickets. Nobody, and I was like, and I heard Fred uncomfortably chuckle, like, oh, that one just was like, and I said, wow, tough crowd. And then that got kind of a guilty, kind of a pity chuckle. And I said, let's try this again. And so anyway, but I think it went well. It was a lot of fun. And Fred can be my critique. He was in the audience. Unlike, and I'm going to say this before he has a chance to, unlike his presentation in Las Vegas, Fred actually showed up.
I did not blow you off.
Right, Fred?
I did show up.
That's very true. So, but anyway, so there is like no set agenda or anything that we want to talk about. We're just kind of here. And Josh is on his commute home, and we had a little pre-chat, and sounds like he's got a couple of things he wants to toss out there. Neil, you've always got some good stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and maybe Josh, since you were first man in the room. We'll kind of flip it over to you. What kind of stuff do you want to chat about carefully and very conscientiously whilst traveling down
Right.
the road, mind you, multitasker that you are?
So one of the big things that we're running into at the credit union that I'm at is just trying to manage spend across our various channels and trying to figure out exactly where to put money that's going to work the best, right? So we're in digital, we're in streaming, we're in all these channels, right? Even a little bit into AI with some of the full throttle stuff that we have running. And we just launched a home equity promotion. It's going well, but I'm just trying to get thoughts around what could make it work better, especially on the digital front, as we invest our dollars that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, the good news is, and I think we're all pretty, I mean, at least everybody that's up on stage now, we're all, I think, pretty much fans of digital. The good news is measuring on digital is a whole lot easier. This conversation would be totally different, 10 years ago, and trying to figure out which newspaper is giving you the best return. That's not exactly an easy decision to make. So I'm gonna pass this one over to Fred in your role at Veracast. I know that was something that you probably had a lot of conversations with folks at the forum about, something that you guys do quite a bit. We talk about this a lot, but I would love to get your take on this, and then I'll chime in with some additional thoughts.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
over
no,
to you,
thanks.
Fred.
Appreciate it. I mean, we work with a lot of clients that are, and every single one of them always tells me they have way more demand, way more people they could potentially reach, way more requests than they have budget for. And so we spend a lot of effort in trying to figure out two main questions. One is, where on the personalization curve is it the most efficient to be, right? Like, everybody thinks a lot about one-to-one, show me, me, and that's great, right? It's a great place to be. But for prospects, that could be really expensive to get to a one-on-one level. So at what level of personalization is going to be the most effective from a spend to outcome perspective? And then from there, the answer is typically something short of one-to-one, something that is more like, let's look at areas, regions, geographies where we see increased demand and over-index our spending there, right? So then it's, what data can we use to tell us, where is there the most demand? I think in this case, you said for home equity. So we'll look at things like search trends, application volume. We'll look at things like buying propensity. And so leveraging a lot of data to kind of model out of the entire service area, does it make more sense to double the spend in half the area where there's a lot of demand, or just blanket everything in one particular area? So that's probably the first thing I would try to look at in your position.
Yeah, cool. Good. Neil or Dana, do you guys have a thought on that from a marketing, from a spend, from a effectiveness perspective? Any insights from
I
your
don't think
roles?
I have anything that's going to go above and beyond what Fred would have talked about.
Same here.
Yeah. So one of the things I'll mention, my friends at Forward Bank up in Marshfield, Wisconsin. One of the things that they did, and Jennifer Sabota, who's their VP of marketing at the forum, actually did a little mini case study on Wednesday, which I was right in the front row for, because I was super excited for, got it all recorded and everything. And but she gave a case study about one of the things that they actually used AI for. And she talked about this process of downloading all of the census data from the U.S. Census Bureau off of their website. And it took a little bit, but she found it, downloaded all that data. So she got all the data for all the counties where Forward has a presence. And then they took all of their customer data and stripped out PII and just essentially had the date of birth and gave it a kind of a demographic label as to what segment it was in. And then they used AI to do a cross match to see what the penetration was. So somewhat like what Fred had said, is if you can figure out where the fish are swimming, then you can spend more money there, because if those are the ones that you want to go after, there may be some indicators as far as age or, some census related data that you could come up with. They were able to use AI to do a cross match of that to determine, well, this county really doesn't have a lot of millennials in it, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to really try to get a lot of millennial traffic, even though we realize we don't have a lot of millennials in that county. Well, that's probably why, because they've got a lot of Gen Xers and boomers, and we have a lot of those. So we're actually pretty good in that county. So maybe we don't need to even spend a whole lot. Maybe it's just maintenance mode. And that gave her the ability to then, in the counties where she knew, oh, there's a bigger generational gap between what we have and what exists in the actual county, then that allowed for her to be able to adjust her spending so she could essentially rob Peter to pay Paul and pull some of that money out of counties where they were spending because they just felt they needed to, realizing that they didn't have to do that. And then behind the scenes, tracking all the activities to determine effectiveness and usage and all those other statistics that you're likely taking a peek at. But that might be one option to take a look at, to see, well, what does that market look like? How do you identify them? And maybe there's a way to do a crossover using some AI stuff. So, Fred, I don't think you sat in on that session, but anything on that explanation trigger a follow-up thought on your part?
No, and I think that's a great way of doing it. There's a lot of resources out there. One of the beautiful things about census data is it's freely provided by the government. I like, just like in your
might be a little old.
It's
it might
right.
be a little old.
Depending on when you access it, but I mean they do some data more frequently than 10 years. Some of it's updated every 2 years, some every 5 years. So in what you described is very similar to what we do as well. We leverage a lot of other different data sources, but we're basically looking at everything from demographic data, financial data, stuff from HMDA, stuff from credit reporting activity, to determine where the action is, if you will, and more importantly, where the action is in relation to what types of customers this particular institution is likely to attract. And so, and you gave the same disclaimer in your talk today. Don't throw the PII in there, but we're not leveraging.
I think I said that a couple of times, given the audience of bankers.
We're not leveraging ChatGPT to do it, but I mean, we're basically leveraging our own proprietary data science to put those types of things together. So what you're describing is very much the same types of techniques. It's just leveraging slightly different data sets and different tools. So I mean, I think that's spot on.
Yeah. Oftentimes we think of AI as one of two C's. You're either increasing the capacity to do more with the same amount of people or resources or budget, or you're adding capability, which basically is this case. Because Jennifer's told me a couple of times, she's like, there's no way we would have even tried to do this if we didn't have AI. There's no way, pivot tables and Excel files. She's like, yeah, that's not an enjoyable, week's worth of effort. So in that case, that was certainly a capability play from their perspective, because AI gave them the ability to do that, versus some of the other stuff that obviously people are doing, where you're just increasing the capacity of doing more with less or more with the same amount. So hopefully that helps, Josh. Cool. All right. Thumbs up. You did say you had a couple. So before you have to drop, because I know sometimes you don't get to spend the entire hour of our happy hour. It's more of a happy 45 minutes for you sometimes. So anything else on your mind you want to chat about?
So the other side of what we do, we're an in-house agency too for credit unions, and so we're starting to market services to other credit unions, small businesses, community banks, kind of whoever needs help, usually on the smaller side. And as we do that, and we're talking to people, it's really interesting to me how many people aren't on social I think, I don't know if anyone listening has any opinion on it, but a lot of people are scared. Some of it's compliance related, some of it is just own personal. They think it has to be polished and look like a Marvel movie, and that's not necessarily the case. And I just wanted to put that out there and let you guys kind of talk about it. It's something that we've really ran into, where people really think that your social media videos have to be the super polished, beautiful end product. And really, I think any kind of content that you can have out there, particularly with video, really plays strongly. And that's kind of the message that I've been shooting out to folks that I've been talking to.
Yeah, cool. So audio is a little bit sketchy, just as an FYI. So I don't know if you're going through a zone, but I think, so to restate, just Josh's credit union actually has an agency side that they launched that services as an agency to financial brands and businesses in the area. And so finding it interesting, the number of organizations you're coming into contact with that don't have social media. I actually had somebody come up today and say, there's probably a lot of these, I said, little Nebraska banks that are still struggling to get on social media. And now they've got AI, and I get it. And I wish that weren't the case, but the world's not slowing down. And there may be pockets and pods of communities that can insulate themselves from having to do that, because we actually have a couple of clients, not many, that are not quite yet active on social media, but they are talking about AI. I don't know if they're just going to just jump right over the top of it and play leapfrog and just leave Facebook and LinkedIn and go right into AI. But I agree with you. There is often that feeling that if you put something on social media, I got AI in the brain, shocker. But if you put something on social media, it's got to be polished and perfect. And I can tell you that's not the case for me. I go in a video and it immediately becomes not professional. But just telling your story and being human and flubbing your words, those are, in my opinion, endearing qualities of genuineness. Plus, it also shows that nobody would build an AI that trips over their own tongue. So you can at least validate that when I do a video like right now, it's not an AI generated, hey Jen or something along those lines. So I think those more raw, wiggly kind of videos that just seem like they're just taken on a spur of the moment, I think those are maybe going to have even more value down the road. It's the hesitation to press the damn button, as Brian Fanzo used to say. And they're, I think, a lot of times using that as an excuse of, well, I don't want it to look bad, so I'm not going to do it. Your first video is going to suck. Your first podcast is going to suck. Your first blog post likely sucked. The next one gets better and better and better.
If you're like me, they just continue sucking. But it's funny. A couple of things that came to mind. One is, I'll pick up on one of the last things you said, which was, I don't think anybody's going to build an AI that intentionally has foibles. I don't know that I agree with that. And I'll point to.
Yeah, it was coming out of my mouth. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I'll point to that Notebook LM that you played today during your presentation. It sighs, it pauses, it is intentionally built to sound and feel human. And I believe there's a lot more of that's going to come down the road. So,
but I don't think it would accidentally sneeze and apologize for not being able to get to the mute.
You never know.
Where
I could see that being in a table of human conditions. I mean, I'm an old Star Trek The Next Generation fan, and I remember, Data the android and his pursuit of trying to be human. There's a lot of things that he tried in his quest to be, more like his fellow shipmates. The other thing, and I don't know, the whole idea of skipping social media and jumping to AI feels to me like I'm gonna, skip buying sofas and going right to buying lawnmowers. Like they're very different things. It's not like they're substitute goods from each other. So I don't know that made a lot of sense to me either.
Oh, I'm going to unpack sofas and lawnmowers with ChatGPT when I'm done and just do a little Skinnerian or Freudian analysis of that. So stay tuned for news coming to you on Fred and sofas and lawnmowers. So, but Neil and Dana, you're both on social media, and wonder maybe if you've got some thoughts on this. People hesitant to get on, not wanting to participate.
Well,
any insights?
Well, my reaction to that is that here in Nebraska, Social Assurance, Ben Pankinen's organization, I've never used their services, but my sense of it has always been that those folks that you just met with in the Nebraska Bankers Association, they don't want to make mistakes, and so they want to hire somebody and say, okay, we want to bring this social media in, but we don't know how to do it, so we want to assign you to make sure we don't screw up. And I don't really know what his company does for sure, but it says reach, engage, and connect with your customers and community on the website. And so I'm guessing that the banker then thinks they've got that base covered because they've hired Social Assurance to do it. And they want to check a box. They want to not screw up. It's sort of the path of nobody's gonna throw me out of the bank because I hired somebody who says they're a professional at this, rather than trying to do my own stuff and publish it.
Yep. Dana, got any thoughts? I think this is one that you might be able to chime in on here.
I definitely understand the sentiment of there are people out there that are still scared of it. And also, I think the biggest thing that we deal with as a community bank, because that's our biggest form of communication is social media. So we have to be on that channel in different ways. And so we are, and we do a lot. But the marketing team does it. And we find it difficult to get our other 270 team members to be a part of that with us and help us tell our story. And I think that's the biggest struggle that we have, is that everyone has the opportunity to do that as they're out and about. Us 5 marketing team members aren't everywhere all the time, and so we can't be available to take a picture or take a video. And so it's like, well, the marketing team wasn't here, so we didn't get any pictures. Why? You all have this device in your hand. It is not hard.
And it's
It's
really easy to
really
use. And I
easy.
know you're using it for other
Yes,
stuff.
you're
Yeah,
all
exactly.
doing it for personal reasons. Why? And so I love when we get an event will happen and one of us is not there, and I'll say, "Did we get any pictures from that event?" And the answer is no. And then I look and I'm scrolling and I'm finding my team members posting things on their personal social media. And so we're just trying to grab things. And I'm thinking, why? Why didn't you think to, give us something that we can tell the story with, and give us some information on it to help us understand what happened. We know the basics. If it's a chamber event, we know what happened, but give us a little more to that. What's something you enjoyed about it? What's something that stood out? So we're constantly, I feel like, kind of just playing that game where everyone's a marketer and you just don't know it yet. And we're going to help you try to understand that you can help us be a part of that journey too. So,
yeah. Have you tried? I know one of the things when you think about employee advocacy or whatever the buzzword is that we want to describe it, but essentially getting your employees to go out and represent themselves, and indirectly then obviously the bank that they work for or whatever organization, if you're listening to this and you're not a banker, but being able to put together example content. LinkedIn used to have a platform called Elevate years ago where a page administrator could create content, push it down to their employees, and then their employees could repost or schedule that or pull it up and edit it and add their own little tweaks to it. And they got rid of that because platforms like Social Assurance and Sprout Social and some others provide that ability. And on one hand, it creates a lot of content that if they just repost it, then everybody's posting the same thing, which isn't great. But on the other hand, the positive side is it at least gives them a rough draft of something to think of, and then, where that goes. So I don't know is that, anything that you've tried, if you've done training,
We tried a variation of
maybe
all
a
those
little bit
things. We've done templates, we've done admins in each market, where each county, where we had people who were representing marketing or representing that county in kind of a liaison position. We have tried just checking in every Monday and saying what's happening this week, who's going to be in charge of grabbing pictures, grabbing video, just making sure we're all on the same page. We've tried training. We've done a variation of things. It typically comes back to that there are things we've missed and we really would have liked to have had information about, but it just was, in the moment they didn't think to capture it, and that's okay.
Yep. Yeah. 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 Well, and we've had some banks that we've talked to that had kicked around the idea, there's that social selling index out there where you can go to, if you pull up your own LinkedIn profile and you go to linkedin.com/sales/SSI, that's your social selling index. And we had a bank we did training for a few years ago, and they said, "Ooh, we want to base a bonus on their SSI being a certain, if you've got to achieve a 50 SSI in order to be able to qualify." And it was kind of difficult from an HR law perspective to validate that was a bona fide work requirement. So if you could somehow tie it back to their expectations and their jobs, the reality is there are people that are really, really good community bankers that are commercial lenders that don't use LinkedIn, and they crush it and they don't need it.
Yep.
But there's also that universe of bankers that are afraid of it, that probably could benefit from it. And there's if Fred doesn't have to use it, why do I have to use it? Well, because Fred's been doing it for 30 years and he's got a book of business, and he shows up to the golf course, deals just start flowing, and that's social network.
But you can show up to the golf course and have a good SSI. It's not an either or. What's your SSI, Eric? What are you, like, 94?
No. I think I'm mid 70s. It fluctuates somewhere around there. So
nice.
Yeah. So yeah.
I've never looked at it until just now. Mine's 69.
Yeah.
I don't know.
69. There you go. Awesome. All right, Fred.
71.
What's yours? Let's go around the horn.
It fluctuates.
70.
I just looked 71.
Yeah. There was a moment where there was a massive adjustment and mine dropped to like a 43. But then I went out and I saw that LinkedIn was doing a little bit of an algorithm adjustment, a little bit of attitude change to combat some bots and stuff like that. And everybody basically dropped into the 40s. So even the gurus. I think our good friend Jack Hubbard, who Fred and I do the Bankers Book Club podcast with, along with Allison Netzer, I think he's one of only a handful of people in the world that has ever achieved a 100
Holy moly
SSI.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I'm surprised at, because there's,
I would have totally screenshotted that and put it on my refrigerator.
Yeah,
by the way,
have.
He did that.
Definitely.
Well,
there's 4 dimensions, and I was very surprised at which one my lowest one is, which is find the right people. Identify better prospects. Yeah, identify better prospects in less time.
Purple.
I was
purple. I suspect the bottom one you're probably a 25.
I'm a 25 on the build relationships. Yes. But apparently I'm building them with the wrong people.
Yeah. I've never been a fan of that score. That's my lowest score as well. And a lot of the variables that go into that are predicated on your utilization of cold outreach, networking in LinkedIn groups. And, if that's what it takes, I've never really been, I don't want to say a fan, because we've tried them, but I've never really found a lot of productive, consistent benefit on LinkedIn groups. It's just been really hard. They don't show up in your feed. You always miss the information. When they get big enough, all of the spammy freaking people show up.
Unless they're small and well curated, it's all crap.
Yeah.
LinkedIn groups are the
Yep.
worst,
So
the worst feature in LinkedIn.
yeah, yeah. And they could be so good. The potential is there, but I know a lot of people have offered up advice and suggestions that were like, man, if they did that, this would be really cool. And it's just crickets. It's kind of like a Verizon, you owe me a quarter joke. You know what I mean? Hey, I got a laugh out of that one. I appreciate
I do like a good callback.
So, yeah, there we go. That's what that was. Callback. So cool. Yeah, that was a fun little rabbit hole. What's next? What's next we want to talk about? Who's got another topic?
Well, I'll just throw out that I was just in Minnesota with the Bank Holding Company Association meeting, and Ben Udell was talking about AI. And it's interesting as I interact with people on AI, it seems that in our industry there is a sense that we have to figure out how to use AI in the bank. And I'm like, yeah. But y'all do realize that the people you're negotiating with are going to use AI too, right? And they act like they've never thought of that.
It's like being able to go on the internet and find out holdback on a car and then rolling into the dealership and feeling empowered that I'm going to buy this for the absolute best price and I'm going to stick it to the car dealer and make that used car salesman sweat and get me the right deal. Because I could use Yahoo. I'm going to go way back in time. Alta Vista. I was
a Hey Jeeves fan myself.
Yeah. You mean
Ask Jeeves. That's what it was.
Ask Jeeves. Although you probably were cool enough where you could just roll.
Well, actually,
hey,
I actually employed a butler to do my searches for me, and his name was Jeeves.
Oh.
I'd say, "Hey Jeeves,
hey Jeeves,
go find this out for
Ask
me,"
Jeeves.
and then he'd go do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's a really good point, Neil, because if our customers are using it and they're playing with it and they're understanding it and then they're using it to help them learn things. Fred knows something that doesn't have anything to do with banking, but Fred, do you remember how many hearts does an octopus have? Do you remember that from my
session? It has 3,
session?
and one stops working when it's swimming.
Yes, that's why octopi, I guess would be the appropriate term. That's why they like to crawl, because it's less taxing for them. But I know that because I was driving to the airport bored and I fired up ChatGPT and I said, tell me some things I don't know. And she's like, you got it. Buckle up. Here, did you know this? And I was like, no, I did not.
Wow.
But they could do that for banking. They could do that for finance and budgeting. And I'm getting a mortgage. Tell me how I go into a bank to best prepare. Why wouldn't a mortgage officer do the same thing? Hey, using AI, my customers are going to be coming in and likely asking you questions. What are the questions that customers would ask you about getting a mortgage that I would want to know as a mortgage loan officer, so I could best prepare them? And that ties back a little bit to my session today. There was some research that I cited that when investigating utilization of AI and satisfaction, there's 2 camps. One is, yeah, it sucks. It's not for me. It doesn't really work. And the other is like, this is amazing. I can't imagine ever not having this. And the people that are of the latter group very much position themselves of working with an AI. They have a conversation with it. They treat it like a colleague. They use please and thank you, not just because they want to be maintained and kept alive when the robots take over the world, but doing that gets you into a mindset that you're actually talking to somebody else. And by being more conversational, you're willing to help them through if it provides you with subpar responses and you need to work with it. And one of the other statistics that I shared was, you expect AI to just answer your questions versus, and Neil, I saw your reaction like, yes, you ask the AI to ask you questions. and have that conversation. Just like if you were my boss and I delivered a really crappy report, we'd have a conversation about it. You would tell me where it was, well, these are the good parts, but here's some other areas. Let's work on these. Why did you do it this way? What can I do as your supervisor to help you understand what it was that I wanted you to do, or what, and that's that approach that I think so many people are missing. And the voice functionality on these devices and these platforms give it that. Once you get over the weird, like I'm talking to my phone and it sounds like it's my bestie. Okay, that's a little weird. But once you do that, it really gets you to use it more as a colleague or a companion. So
one of my struggles is that I don't like to repeat myself in the same forum. And I've been talking to you so much, Eric, that I don't know if I've told some of these stories. So you just shut me off if I've already. That's the other thing about being old men. They tend to repeat stories.
We have new audience members all the time. We never know. It's like a box of chocolates. You just don't know who's going to show up. So,
but it's, you just look at this and I love the book, The AI Driven Leader. It's by Jeff Woods. I don't know if you actually the one that gave that to me. Somebody I got the book from, and I'm listening to it. Every chapter I'm getting something out of it. But it talks about AI is not the thought leader. It's your thought partner. Treat it like a partner, because you should ultimately be in charge of whatever work output you have. But your partner is your assistant in this, and asking it to interview you. It's a beautiful thing. I just teed up what things that we used to buy as a retail purchase, what things have been changed by AI agents in the way they buy. And what you said, cars. People buy cars differently today than they did before. And real estate and healthcare and all of these things are changing. And yet I see bankers acting like, well, they're just going to buy what we sell them at the price we sell it. Oh yeah, sometimes they're going to ask for us to match the credit union down the street. Nope. I've heard that farmers are now using AI agents to buy their fertilizer. That if you think about the commodity of fertilizer, do I really care who I buy it from? That really, I mean, it's fertilizer. It's going to go on the land. So, and they got the logistics of delivering it, and I can go out and I can get a lease cost. Somebody said to me, one of the bankers said, "Oh, I don't think that's going to work because they these farmers have friends who are maybe part of the local co-op, and they're part of the co-op board, and they want to really do business with people they know." I said, "Okay, let's flip that around. They're not going to say to the AI agent, should I do business with people I know and respect, or should I buy the lowest cost?" What they're going to do is say, give me the price for all of these different viable options. Give me the 10 best. And the one that shows up is, oh, that one's my friend, but it's not the lowest cost. Well, what's the price differential between the ones I really want to do business with and the ones that would be the lowest cost provider? And then the human being will say, for that difference, I will or I will not select my friendly relationship over my lowest cost relationship. I just think it's going to get so competitive for the bankers, and they act like, oh, it's kind of like when social media came on and they said, I think we're just going to opt out. You might opt out, but your clients are not opting out, folks.
You're not going to be on Facebook, so nobody's going to talk about us. Okie dokie. That was the other.
I was say, like, and I know very little about farming. I did used to own a farm, but I rented the land out to a farmer that knew what they were doing. There are probably some nuances that I don't understand about fertilizer, and there is probably some premium I would put on, a relationship that is going to float me an extra 30 days when I don't have the cash flow to make the fertilizer payment or the whatever other supply I need payment. I don't want to discount intangibles, right? But what the AI can help you do is help you value those intangibles as well, and say, hell, maybe this one is 10 cents cheaper a bag or a ton, or I don't know how they price fertilizer, but okay, and here's all the value add
And I'm in no
that comes
position to
into
correct
it.
you, so go say what you want.
And well, some people say I do sell fertilizer for a living, but there, so I mean, there's just so much variable. And when I was actually thinking before, Eric, about what you were saying about AI that has foibles, I can imagine in a not too distant future a time that you could leverage AI to go call 100 financial institutions and negotiate the best mortgage. And I'm not going to take time to do that, right? I might do 2 or 3, but if it's an AI doing it, especially if it's a big purchase or on the commercial side,
Yeah.
where it truly those numbers really kind of move the needle. Why wouldn't I
Yep.
go talk to 100,
Yeah.
go talk to 500?
Yeah. I think I saw a case study. The numbers are vague, but the magnitude, I think, is what matters. It was a bot that basically could call, and you uploaded the number and the business, and let's say it called 5,000 numbers and it landed like 6 deals. Well, at the end of the day, paying a person to make 5,000 phone calls and getting 6 deals is that's a losing ROI. Very, very easy. Anybody can tell that. But the 6 deals that they got very easily paid for the cost of the AI to place those 5,000 calls. Easily. So that was an interesting one. I don't know how many of the community banks that we work with are comfortable using robocalling services, but it's getting better. It's getting better for sure. So, Neil, have you gotten to the point of the book where he talks about it's hard to read the label when you're
Yes.
inside the box? Is
Yes.
that a quote you've heard?
I've seen
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So the and welcome Laurel. She's in the audience but says hello. So speaking of banking book club recommendations, the Bankers Book Club is going to feature the AI driven leader in our next book club. So that's going to be our conversation and talking about that. There's also a really good podcast interview with Michael Stelzner from Social Media Examiner. He's got the AI Explored. Social Media Examiner's got like 3 podcasts, and there's one probably 5 episodes ago, I would say, with Jeff, and that is just loaded with nuggets. It's a little over an hour long, I think, and that is really, really good. It's a super abbreviated version of his book, but he talks about a lot of those things that you just mentioned, Neil, and that would be well worth the listening to as well. So definitely check that out. But I'm pretty excited because I've listened to that book now a couple of times and have made a couple of quotes, and it's a good one. So good pick.
I do
Sweet.
like it. And
Awesome.
there's such applicable things to this changing world. Like, and of course, my realm in banking is deposit strategies. But I think everybody on this call might be a little bit surprised to know that it is published what the average rate in the United States is for the 6-month CDs. The FDIC will just publish it. The average rate, folks, 1.6%. That has nothing to do with what banks are willing to pay. That's their declared rate. And so in the AI world, the AI is going to pick up the declared rate. Oh, but if you call us, then and we'll work with you and we'll give you a rate more like 4%. This whole game that's being played, I call it a dangerous game of chicken. That we declare we're doing 1.6, but we'll really do 4.2.
Almost like a rabid chicken, like a really dangerous chicken, like a crazy chicken. I'm sure so in addition to, now I got to go to ChatGPT. I've got to talk to it about what does it mean when you use an analogy comparing sofas and lawnmowers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over and use GPT-4o's image generation, and I'm going to have it generate me a crazy-eyed chicken.
A rabid chicken.
See how that works? That's going to be part of my recap.
There is a commercial.
You just wait.
There is a commercial where a squirrel comes up and the bird says, "Have you just been electrocuted?" because of the things he's doing and saying. So,
Was that directed at
I
me?
could be. I don't
I
know.
don't know. Yeah. So, well, that's all right. Fred admitted to selling fertilizer. I'm happy to be an electrocuted squirrel. So we're good with that. We're good with that. So, I know Laurel put in the comments, any fintech news or stuff. I don't know if anything along those lines jogs a thought or an idea. Nothing comes to mind for me. I don't know, Laurel, if you've got anything that you want to toss in the chat for us to pick up on. So we'll give you a minute to see if there's anything there, or if anybody that's listening wants to come on and join us live. If you go to www.thelinkedbanker.com/happy hour, that'll take you to a page. Scroll down just a little bit, and there's a button on the left-hand side that you can click on, and that will fire up a restream, and you'll be able to come on here and join us as part of the conversation. I posted that into the comments on the LinkedIn post, but I didn't say that at the beginning. So there might be some folks out there that just didn't know that. And yeah,
I can see you're in a hotel room, and it probably wouldn't work for that, although you can maybe do it virtually. But maybe for a future one, you could have a QR code that has that URL up in the corner, and then they could just take a picture and join that way.
That wouldn't that be cool? I think there's even a way. Let me just try this.
Well, while you're pointing and clicking,
so while I'm typing, fill in the gaps for me here
with the other part of what today is, which is, not just happy, but we're not just the hour, but also happy. So I don't believe anybody else is enjoying cocktails but me, and
not yet, but there is a reception that I am going to be heading down to here shortly as soon as this wraps up. So there is a room full of vendors and bankers. After I completed my session, it was either going to be people excited to talk to me, or people would avoid making eye contact altogether. And we're going to see what that's going to look like. I did make the decision. I'm gonna roll down in my Ray-Bans. So I've got my my Meta Ray-Bans, and my voice agent for my Ray-Bans now, they provide you with customization capabilities where you can pick celebrity voices, and I have chosen John Cena, the wrestler. So
very cool.
Yes. So he was one. Yeah. So me and John Cena, we're gonna go down and hang out. And for those that are brave enough to make eye contact with me, I might let them take the
I'm only 6
minutes
away from the hotel. I might even just pop over just to see this.
Just for John Cena.
Bring it.
Well,
bring it.
Here's the thing. Eric texted me a couple hours ago, and he's like, "Are you coming to the happy hour?" And I thought he was talking about the NBA happy hour. And I was like, I don't think I've been invited. I'm not a member. I'm not. But he was.
And then I sent him the URL, and he's like,
that. And I always love to be on the LinkedBanker happy hour. But I don't think they let me in. So maybe Neil, you'll have better.
Well, I just have to keep a low profile, but not like other people we know on this call. So, but I do have one thing I'm working on that I thought I'd share with the group. I lead the Sheshnoff Idea Exchange, and they have forums for CEOs, CFOs, chief credit officers, technology officers, risk officers. But you know the officer that they have no forum for? Marketing.
What's up with that?
Boy, man, if there was just somebody that you knew that ran marketing forums, man, I don't know.
So nothing, and I am not a.
Hey, Fred, ask me what I'm doing next week, Fred.
What are you doing next week, Eric?
Well, I'm going to Illinois. I'm going to run a marketing forum for one of the associations, the CBAI down there, because I do these marketing forums.
Maybe I should nominate you to do a marketing forum. So I'm slow after all these years of knowing Eric, but I have actually started the process. Now, who knows? But the thing about this is it wouldn't just be Eric. It could be everybody involved in marketing. So this could be
Yeah.
for people who are frequently involved in this. I told them this isn't my thing, but I think some people from Eric's network could be really helpful for that organization. So we'll see where it goes, guys. But that's
you never know.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun.
Well, if
So
Eric wouldn't mind being involved in something else with me, I would mind jumping in on that as well.
All
Sounds
right.
like
absolutely,
sounds like fun.
we would call that the Robert Graham tour.
Perfect.
The crazy. I actually walked by a vendor booth today. You know, I sometimes am known to wear flamboyant shirts when I'm out and about. When I'm home, it's usually just basic t-shirt. But if I'm going to be presenting, it's a good excuse not to wear a tie. And I walked by a booth and somebody said, "Man, you look like a banker." And this is in a room full of lots of gray and navy blue sport coats, lots of them. And I said, "Yeah, good one." So anyway, it was pretty funny. We had a nice chat. So funny stuff. The only other item that I wanted to mention before we wrap up is I'm going to be partnering up again with the fine folks over at Bank Marketing Center, and I am being hosted by them on another webinar coming up on May 29th at 3 p.m. I think is the time, 3 p.m. Eastern. Shocker, it's going to be about AI and a little social media and some banking stuff. But the Bank Marketing Center folks have done some really cool stuff with their platform, incorporating a new posting agent that allows for people to be able to not only create their content inside of their environment from more of a standardized, secure, compliant way, but you can schedule it and post it out through their new posting agent to a variety of different social networking platforms. And so we're going to be kind of talking a little bit about Thought Leader and other things to be thinking about. Some of the stuff that you chatted about, Dana, as to how do we get people excited about this? And is there ways that marketing departments can leverage some AI to help continue to try to get our employees to want to play with this and to help us and to help them? Because I mean, at the end of the day, my father told me, you want people to see you as their banker, not just somebody that works at the bank. And if you're out there on social media, you're participating, you're sharing info, that's good for you. And it's good for the bank. So we really, really want to make sure that that gets done. So I'm really excited to be partnering up with Bank Marketing Center. On my LinkedIn profile, I've got some stuff, our company page. So I'll probably share links to the chat thread for today's conversation. So more to come on that, but we've got to reserve your, kind of slot post out there as well. So anything coming up for you guys? You were the 4 brave souls, and I told you Josh would bounce it about 45 minutes after. But anything coming up for the 3 of you that you'd like to promote? Anything going on in your world?
I just posted that there's a conference in New York that I'm going to be keynoting the presentation on. It's a retail deposit strategy conference, and it's June 9th and 10th.
Yep. Very cool. Very, very cool. So, all right. Cool. Good. Dana, anything coming up in your world? Going to any conferences, attending any events?
I'm not, but I will say something that just happened this week. I had my first sit down interview audit exam for marketing, and that was nerve-wracking.
Your terms got worse as you went on. Sit down, interview, exam, audit. Like that.
Or audit exam. I don't even know.
I'm like, oh, I'll have a sit down. I don't know about an audit.
Well,
waiting for the anesthesia
I've
to
been
kick
asked
in.
questions before, via email, or a compliance officer would come to me and say, "Hey, they want to know, Can you just give me some answers on this?" Done that before, easy stuff. This time I got a calendar invite and it said, "This is a sit down interview." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And so, I'm calling my compliance officer and I'm like, "Tell me what I need to do. Like, what do I need to know? I've never done this before. What are they going to ask?" And she was like, "Well,
What were some of the questions that came
Well,
up?
it started with just tell us what your overall strategy for marketing is. And I was like, well, where do you want me to start at?
Yeah,
And so it went from that to how do you come up with that strategy? What channels do you use? How do you decide as a team what the priorities are? I mean, it was all across the board. What are each of your
yeah,
positions and your responsibilities, and then we got real far into fair lending, and as you all probably know, that's a huge topic, and
yep,
so there was a lot I could answer, but also we had our chief client officer in the room, thankfully too, so she could talk through some deposit strategies and why they prioritize certain things, and then I had to talk about how we market those priorities. um, so that
yep,
was good between the two of us, but it wasn't awful. It was just a very new thing for
yeah.
me, so it was interesting.
Was 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 that an examiner, like somebody from the FDIC or the OCC, or was it just like an internal auditor doing an
N-
internal review and writing an internal report?
Examiner, yeah.
It was
Yeah,
an
Fed
examiner.
examiners, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a big deal. I
Dang.
was a nervous wreck going into it, but it was all right. It was all good. At the end, I thought, okay, I was pretty confident in all that. I felt good. I gave them I don't call it a marketing plan anymore. I call it a roadmap because it
Yeah.
changes over time sometimes. We write it so
Yep.
far before the start of the year that we've learned that it's going to have some things that just get changed and manipulated before we ever get started. But that's what I
Yeah.
do to get our board information about our strategies and where we're going in the next year. And now we take our roadmap and we kind of adapt it over time. But yeah, I handed them that and kind of walk them through how we get to that point and how we budget and all of those things. So it was very interesting.
Wow.
First time for me.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Well, good for you. I'm sure you knocked it. You probably came across way better than what it felt you came
I hope
across.
so.
And because I know you know your stuff. So before we wrap up, Laurel did post something in here. So we've had, I think last month we had Dave Mayo over at FedFizz join us. And so in true Texan, I guess, talking, we've got y'all's rolled right into I love it. I love it. You type exactly as you talk. So thank you, Laurel, for living your brand. Um, I would say from a regulatory perspective, the one thing that struck me was the conversations that are going on here in Nebraska about stablecoin, cryptocurrency, just the alternative monetary instruments. I have not heard really boo about that in any of the other states that I've been at. And there seems to be a lot going on here. And the both of you live in Nebraska, so you can probably comment more on that. But a lot of conversation about stablecoin, how it's backed, where it's going to go. Is Chase going to just end up being the custodian of all of this, and it's going to be detrimental to the community bankers? Laura, I would be really interested in if you guys have got any resources or if you've had conversations that I've missed through the FinTech Cowboys, or if maybe that's something we could bring back when we do our happy hour next month. But that's one of the things that I didn't even think about. I used that in my presentation today as an example and dove in with Perplexity and Notebook LM just to try to understand it. So that's one item that I would say is kind of interesting. So what else you guys got?
I would just say that I was in Minneapolis Monday and Tuesday at that Bank Holding Company Association meeting, and that was a topic there too. And I think it's because of this Genius Act trying to get through Congress, through the Senate, and the political battle on that. And you're right, most bankers don't seem to be very aware of this and the reality of it potentially changing the payment rails dramatically. Now, we're all a little skeptical because bankers have a hard time with something you can't underwrite, and you cannot underwrite most crypto, but stablecoin is different.
Yeah.
And so we really are juggling different thoughts here. And I think it is time to get serious about where where that may land in terms of impacting banks.
Yeah. Anything from your perspective, Fred?
I'm trying to think about something that maybe hasn't been brought up, and not a whole lot like new or different or kind of cutting edge. I mean, I hear a lot of the same sort of stuff. People are concerned with, like their CRA compliance. People are concerned with, kind of the same things they're always concerned with. I don't think that there's anything. Well, I guess I'll say one thing, which is a little bit less day-to-day regulatory and a little bit more planning for long-term strategy, which is this. Bankers would love a lot more certainty in what the regulatory view of mergers and combinations is. Like there's a lot of institutions that are looking and have some targets in mind and have thought about it, but just not really knowing the uncertainty about what's going to happen if they announce something. I think that's an area that I get a lot of questions on. Not that I have the answers, but I definitely get the questions.
Yeah. I just did a quick bit of multitasking. I pulled up my presentation deck. That's a bit.ly link that goes out to an audio overview MP3 that I pulled off of Notebook LM on stablecoin related to, or I guess generated from the perspective of a CEO in Nebraska for a community bank. So it's a little niche for where we're at right now, but it covers a lot of good information, and you're interested in hitting that up, just got to make sure. Bitly is our case sensitive, so it's NBA 25 dash stablecoin. So feel free to check that out and see what you think. So cool. Well, I think that is a wrap. We're even 3 minutes over, but this was a great conversation. Dana, I'm going to give you a huge thumbs up for like first time she rolled in, pressed the button, and then I put her on camera, and it was like, oh, what just happened? Like, why am I on screen? What's going on? I just showed up to listen. But the last part about your exam and your experience, that was super helpful. So I appreciate you sharing that. That was awesome.
Thank you.
So cool. And Neil, Fred, always good to see you guys as well. But yeah, that's a wrap on May's Happy Hour here for the LinkedBanker. We'll be back again in June for our next Happy Hour, second Thursday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I think that's, it's before I go to the Michigan Bankers Annual Convention, because we usually do our mastermind while I'm on the island at the Grand Hotel, because that sounds so hoity-toity. But we'll look forward to seeing everybody again, and hopefully well before that out on the socials, because I know we're not all afraid of it, and we're leaning into it.
Go practice your stand-up routine down at the Happy Hour, Eric.
Yeah, you
I
and
will.
John
I think I'm gonna. Yeah, I think I'm gonna need that to take. Maybe I'll see if I can get my ChatGPT to just tell jokes for me. We'll see how that goes. So, anyway, great to see you all, and thanks again for everybody that was there. And hope you enjoyed listening live and catching the recap. So, have a good evening, everyone. See you later.
Bye.